All right, everybody, how's it going? It is Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, and of course, we just finished with the regular season here in the NFL, so now it's on to the playoffs. It's on to Wild Card Weekend. It was a pretty good regular season. It was kind of weird at times. It was the first time we had 17 regular season games, so, it was bound to be a little weird, especially with all the COVID stuff breaking out and games looking a little weird at times and rescheduling. But, what the heck? Oh, yeah, okay, I just didn't change the heading. That should say something else than Saturday football, but here's kind of the playoff picture. This is what happened at the end of the game. So, by the way, we went 173, 98, and 1 in our overall picks for the season. Pretty solid season, I would say. We avoided 100 losses, which was something I thought early on in the season. I was like, great, we're careening right toward 100, but we avoided it by 2, so that's pretty good, I would say. Let's see if we can do better next year, and let's see how the playoffs go. Typically, the wild card weekend for me has been one of my worst weeks in picking games, so we'll see how this plays out. So let's take a quick look at how the playoff picture looks and how the regular season shaped out, who made it, who didn't, and well, we won't really pay attention to them guys. They have other shit to worry about. But here are the 14 winners. In the NFC, of course, you have the starting from top to bottom. You have the Eagles, you have the Niners, you have the Cardinals, you've got the Rams, you've got the Cowboys, you've got the Buccaneers, and you have the 1 seed who has home field advantage and a first round bye in the Green Bay Packers. So I guess if you're a Packers fan, you have a week off. You get to scope out your competition. You get to see if any of these wild card teams get an upset, and maybe you have to play one of them, or if you may have to go play the Rams, or just depending on what happens, right? So you get the lowest seed remaining, and that's pretty cool for when it goes to, I believe, the divisional round next weekend. And that's very similar to the AFC. When we go look at the AFC playoff picture, it would have the Steelers, again, top to bottom, or bottom to top. It would be the Steelers, the Patriots, the Raiders, the Bengals, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the number 1 seed, the Titans, who, of course, much like the Packers, have home field advantage. They have the number 1 seed. They have the bye week in the first round, so they're off, and they get to kind of scope out and see what their opponent might be. Could it be the Steelers, Patriots, or Raiders, or will it be like the Bengals? Those are the most likely teams. We'll see. We'll see if there's any upsets, if there's any kind of crazy games happening. Titans and Packers fans and the rest of the NFL fans just get to kind of kick back and watch. But there's 12 other fan bases that have a pretty stressful weekend coming up. So let's kick right off into the Saturday slate of games. Right away, we have the 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard game. It'll be the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. The line is -6 with Bengals are 6-point favorites with an over-under of 49. The lines are included just for the sake of having them in there. I don't really let those consider who's going to be the team I pick to win. They're from FanDuel and all that fun stuff. And if you gamble, make sure you use just More Than Me as a source of information. I don't gamble, so. Anyway, we have the Bengals. I like the Bengals in this one. Both teams are 10-7. Both teams have had pretty good little seasons here. I would say it's been kind of up and down for each team. Kind of inconsistent play, a little bit of an inconsistent flow. I'm wondering if the Bengals sitting their starters last week was kind of a detriment, but they still played, halfway decent. But then you look at the Raiders. They played that really tense, close game with the Los Angeles Chargers, a team in their own division. Those games are always a little harder. The Raiders have been winning games kind of late, kind of clutch mode in the last couple weeks here. I believe against the Colts, it was a late kind of skirmish to the end. Then again, an overtime game last week against the Chargers. So they've had some super emotional games, high intensity games that take a lot out of a team typically. And then I look to a thing I think Derek Carr, when he plays in cold weather games, this is going to be, I think it's expected to be 30 degrees in Cincinnati or colder this weekend. And if that's the case, then you're running into a situation where I believe Derek Carr is 2-8 in the 10 games he's played in weather like this. So there's another slate against the Raiders. And I think the way that the Raiders are going to be able to beat the Bengals, because if you remember back to their earlier game, the game was in the season, I believe November 20th or something like that. They played this very close game where it looked like until the Raiders slipped up late with a couple mistakes, the Bengals capitalized and then blew them out of the water. And I think that's kind of a similar situation where the Raiders, in order to play with the Bengals and keep it very close, have to play nearly perfect. And the 1 or 2 mistakes that they could make will wind up dooming them. And I think they will make the mistakes, typically because when you look at Derek Carr in cold weather games, that's when he does not play as good as he typically does. Warm weather games, it's hard to beat Derek Carr in a dome. He's a different quarterback than when the weather gets a little cold. I don't know what happens. And it seems like the Bengals kind of know how to play them. They kind of have an idea of how to play the Raiders. Typically, if a team plays a team twice, and the team, the team that won the first time, it's kind of hard to win the second time. But I think that game was such a thing where both teams are pretty evenly matched, where a mistake or two happens, it's going to be like that's the decider in the game. And when you look at a team who's 2-8 or a quarterback who's 2-8 in these cold weather games, it kind of makes you go, uh-oh. But like the other thing that's kind of making it like, well, the Raiders could win this game as well is like, this is the first time any of these guys have ever shown up in a playoff thing. I don't know if I forget if Derek Carr's had a playoff experience, but like if he has, that gives them a lot of there's a lot more there for them. But again, it's Bisaccia's first run in the playoffs really as a head coach. It's Zach Taylor, so there's no real coaching advantage or real player personnel advantage in the playoffs. So I like the Bengals to get the upset or to win. Not really an upset. They're the same team almost. But yeah, there's mainly the cold weather. I think Carr's going to make a couple mistakes that the Bengals can capitalize on, and I expect a strong game out of the Bengals offense. Plus, they're probably going to run the shit out of it. Here's my upset of the wild card weekend. I have two of them this weekend. This one was probably wildly expected, but I also really like the way that these two teams have played each other this year. It's going to be the New England Patriots playing the Buffalo Bills, 10-7 versus 11-6. The Bills are 4-point favorites with an over-under of 43.5. So the weather is going to be like 15 to 20 degrees. So that's kind of a neutral advantage. As long as it's not super windy, the Bills will be able to probably pass it. But you also have to look to the fact that the colder weather does usually lean toward, well, what team can run the ball a little better, what team can play a little bit more smash mouth. I would say both teams can play a pretty physical defense when they want to. The Bills may be a little more so, but their rush defense has been a little bit hit and miss this season. There have been times when teams could take advantage of it. Now, if we look to the first game they played, Patriots took advantage and played a really strong defense. Second game, they didn't really play the best defense, and the Bills took advantage of it, looking really sharp on offense. So you have to imagine there's somewhere in the middle where that game's going to lie. And you have to imagine the Patriots are going to slip into their playoff mode where it becomes, the defense becomes a little bit harder to play against, and they start playing very smart offense. I don't know. I just like the upset pick here. Now, the odds are stacked against the Patriots. Rookie quarterback. The Patriots aren't that good on the road in wildcard weekends. It's not. This doesn't paint a favorable outcome. More than likely, the Bills are going to win this game. But I do like the Patriots to get the upset. It's one of those things where it's like, I think the Patriots coaching is going to do a number on the Bills, who might try to do too much in this game to try to win this game. I think there's a level of overcoaching that the Bills are going to do going into this game that could wind up backfiring on them, because we've seen them overcoach. It happened to them against the Chiefs, and they kind of it's like this weird thing that happened against the Bills and the Chiefs in that last playoff game that the Bills were in, where the Bills looked really kind of confident early, but then they just I feel like they just started thinking too much and trying to do too much when if they would have just played their usual Bills game plan, they probably could have contended better or even won that game. Whereas I feel like that could happen again, whereas they might try to overcoach against the Patriots, and the Patriots just can take advantage of that. I think the Bills, at times, they have that streaky rush defense that is a little bit questionable. And it's just, I expect the Patriots to play really good. I expect the Bills to play good. I see an upset. I know most people aren't going to have the Patriots winning, by the way, so that's fine. 1 o'clock Eastern Standard. Let's go to the Sunday games. This one's a little bit easier. I think most people are going to have this game, though. If there's one if there's one division that gives Brady the fits in the playoffs, it's the goddamn NFC East. The Bucs are 8.5-point favorites with an over/under of 49. Obviously, it's the Tampa Bay Bucs. It's at home. 9-8 versus 13-4. I just don't know if the Eagles are ready to be a playoff team. They kind of got in, they kind of get in, and an unexpected little run here. They're certainly the super underdog of the playoffs, I would have to imagine. Could they win this game? Maybe, if the Buccaneers come out and they just do not have it, and they have no answer to like what Jalen Hurts can do at quarterback. Like they're just ill prepared, and they're just undercoached, and Brady plays a terrible game. It looks like Drew Brees a couple years, like last season in the first couple games of the playoffs. Maybe if that happens, then the Eagles could get a win, but I seriously doubt it. And this feels just like a weird mismatch for the poor Eagles. Like, they're going up against, like, yeah, their defense is pretty good, the Eagles, but like, okay, so here's a weird stat. I think when they play teams that have double-digit wins, the Eagles, they are like, what was it? 3 and like they're not very good. Like that's where most of their losses come from, because I believe when they play teams with under 10, it's something like 6 wins. Like it's something dramatic like that. They get the majority of their wins or something. Like, I was reading a stat like that. And they're playing a team that's kind of a good team with a big explosive. So the Eagles can beat up on bad teams and teams that don't necessarily like run shit, but like when they play a good team, they're kind of their flaws become very apparent. It's like, oh, okay, this is the shortcomings of what the Eagles can and can't do. And this feels like a game where if it was 2 years in the future, they'd probably be able to win. But the Eagles, who are ahead of a schedule in a rebuild, I think this is just where it ends. Like, they have no real matchup advantages. Like, the Tampa has better defense, offense, coaching, position battles all go pretty much to the Buccaneers. Could the Eagles get an upset? Maybe, if a lot of crazy shit happens. Here's my second upset pick of the weekend. I think this is going to be a pick a lot of people have as an upset. But I have very good reason. My other upset pick was just because I'm I like the Patriots and hate the Bills, and whatever. I don't really care, I'll admit that. But this one actually has merit to it. The 49ers take on the Cowboys, two bitter rivals, take one another on. It'll be the Cowboys with the 3-point, Cowboys are 3-point favorites with an over-under of 51. I like the 49ers in this one, mainly because of a few things. When you look at the Cowboys, right? I believe they're 6-0 against their division, right? Which is very good. And then 6-5 against the rest of the NFL based on their 12-5 record. So that's a little bit jarring and something to think about. Go look at the 49ers. You see a 10-7 record. Not very good against their division. I believe they went 2-4, but like 8-3 against everybody else. So that's kind of makes you go, oh shit. They just don't play well against their super stacked ass, like impossible to win games in division. But when they go outside of it, they kind of start to dominate. Now, you also look at certain things about the Cowboys since about week 9 or week 10. Since about week 9, they've averaged, I think they've been giving up about 130 rush yards a game, one of the worst numbers in the NFL. And in games where they do give up over that, I believe they wind up like 2-4 is their overall record, where they give up over like 130 rush yards or 125. Now they're going up against a 49ers team that runs the ball very effectively with several people. And when the run game is working, which seems to be something that the Cowboys are prone to do, allow a team to run all over them and run the football quite effectively and quite well. All of a sudden you run into this issue where as soon as you start letting the 49ers run, that opens up that play action pass that they have. Jimmy Garoppolo becomes more effective with the dominant run game. And it appears that the Cowboys are in no position, based on their performance since week 9, almost 10 weeks now. They have no ability to really deal with the run, and that's probably a problem running into the 49ers. Bad matchup for the Cowboys to get early on. Plus, you have to look at like how well the 49ers have been playing on defense the last few weeks. They've been playing good on offense. They've been, doing what they have to do to, it's just been very good football from the 49ers, whereas the Cowboys have been playing kind of slumpy and inconsistent football the last few weeks. This feels like a 49ers upset for the reasons I've listed. Mainly because I just don't know, based on the last 10 weeks of the season, if the Cowboys can deal with the 49ers running attack. Give me the 49ers 27-24. Yeah, poor Steelers. 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard. This is the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are 12.5 point favorites with an over-under of 46. I think the Steelers will keep it close because their defense has been very, very good this season. But I ultimately do believe that the Chiefs, who have played pretty good defense at times during the season, especially against offenses that have been struggling or inconsistent, their defense kind of shines. This is kind of one of those games where the Chiefs defense early on could very much put this game out of reach by scoring some points themselves on like a strip sack or a fumble interception return, and then kind of as the game progresses, the Steelers get back into it slowly, but it winds up being far too short. And the Chiefs offense does whatever it just has to survive against the Steelers defense. I could actually see the Chiefs defense scoring more than, I can see them scoring 14 points. Multiple times I can see it, or at least setting the Chiefs offense up at the 10 by forcing turnovers early, which seems to be the Chiefs' MO. A very aggressive, strong defense early, let the offense kind of like hold the ball and kind of like make it hard to come back, because you let the Mahomes and the offense do long drives, give the ball back, and then if they happen to score, they eat up 4 or 5 minutes. There's just not a whole lot of clock left. Very smart approach by the Chiefs lately. I think it works to perfection here against the Steelers. As long as they just like don't choke again or something like that, like they did in the Super Bowl, they'll be all right. Give me the Chiefs pretty confidently over the Steelers 30-20. And great career, Big Ben. Last game of the weekend, it'll be the Monday Night Football, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard. It'll be the Cardinals taking on the Rams. The Rams are 4-point favorites with an over-under of 49.5. Removing the fact that the Rams almost always beat the Cardinals, Jared Goff and the Rams, and it's just one of those things that seems to be like death taxes, and like the way NFC West football matchups seem to go. There's a very strict set of rules. I'm looking at this at a level of these two teams are very evenly matched up, and it's going to be hard to pick a winner in this game. But I look at it, I have to go I trust the Rams coaching staff and the Rams quarterback a little bit more than I do the first time. This is going to be Kyler's it's going to be so weird seeing this. I have no idea what the Cardinals are going to look like as a playoff team. They've been kind of bad the last few months, but they've been winning again lately. So it's kind of are they over that hump? How is Cliff and Kyler going to look in the playoffs? We've seen Stafford. He hasn't won a playoff game, but his numbers aren't the worst. And I wonder if they're going to look better now that he's on a better team with a better coach and a better offensive system in the playoffs. They're going to be the home team. So I really like the Rams to win this one, to be honest. It's the hardest one to figure out with the most question marks, because it's a division game where the Rams usually dominate, but we don't really know what both teams look like in the playoffs in their current iterations. So this one's a giant question mark to me. I do like the Rams a lot more, but if Stafford has a bad game, they'll lose terribly. But if Kyler has a bad game, the Cardinals will lose terribly. It's one of them. We'll see what both teams look like when we get there. Right now, though, I see both teams as pretty even. I think the Rams have a little bit better of a defense. Cardinals, maybe the Rams have a slightly better offense as well, and the Rams have a slightly better or way better coaching situation, so I'm leaning on the Rams. Go figure. There's my overall pick'em record for the season. Like I said, I went 173, 98, and 1. And that's pretty much it for this week's pick'em. I know it's a little shorter than usual, but hey, not as many games. So all right, hopefully my wild card weekend picks go well, but usually they don't, and I usually look pretty silly by the end of the weekend. But then by the divisional round, I'm usually pretty perfect after that. I rarely get anything wrong after this weekend. Wild card weekend, much like the Patriots, just isn't the weekend for me. But hopefully, maybe things turn around. This was a season of change. I did very well on Thursday nights as well. Leave your picks down below. Leave your thoughts on my picks if you want to. If you don't want to leave your picks, leave how you did it during the season, all that fun stuff. Just make sure you just leave it down below. I'll be sure to comment back as soon as I can. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. We're coming toward the end of the season, but we do have the off season to cover. The USFL 2.0 we're going to cover. We've got baseball coming up if it gets over its strike. So lots of reasons to to keep following, and we do lots of live streams. We're going to actually have a consistent schedule for that, and yada yada yada. So all right, I'm going to keep this under 20 minutes. So thank you so much for listening all season long. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to keep going until the Super Bowl, and then obviously, like I just said, all those other stuff. So, make sure you leave the picks down below, your thoughts and all that. I'll comment back, like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. And thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, night, morning, whenever you listen to this. And good luck to your team this weekend if they play, unless you're a Bills fan. Peace.